And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to have Andrew Warren on. He was elected state attorney for Florida's 13th Judicial District, which covers the city of Tampa and Hillsborough County, first in 2016, then again in 2020. But then on August 4th, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis overturned the will of the people and suspended him because, quote, his woke agenda, which is unlike anything I've ever heard in any constitution, having that power to do it because you're woke. So, Andrew, welcome to the show, my friend. I'm sorry for what you're going through, but I appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Dean.
So, Andrew, tell us first, before we get into what DeSantis did, you know, you're an attorney, 2016, you say, I'm going to run for office here. And essentially, my understanding is that you're a DA, district attorney, the way we would know it here. That's it, correct?
That's right.
So tell us, why did you run for office in 2016?
Well, Dean, I'd spent my career as a prosecutor. I had spent time in Washington, D.C., where I cut my teeth prosecuting street crime. And then I spent most of my career with the Justice Department as a federal prosecutor, prosecuting complex, high dollar value securities fraud and investment fraud and foreign corruption cases that victimized retirees and investors and government programs and taxpayers. And I loved it. It was such a great part of my career. I ended up moving home to Florida, and I continued that work with the Justice Department. But then I saw that there were things going on in our local state attorney's office here, the local prosecutor's office, that I thought could be improved. And I had a vision for criminal justice that was beyond just the outdated way of thinking of like lock them up and throw away the key with every single case. I realized that we could do a better job for public safety if we prioritize certain types of cases and steered low-level cases into diversion and prevention and rehabilitation. And so I ran on that platform in 2016, and I was fortunate enough to have won the support of the voters and to be elected into office.
And then you did that. You were reelected in 2020, doing, and obviously you did an excellent job. Then we find out on August 4th, Ron DeSantis does his own little nonviolent January 6th, where he overturns the will of the people here. How did you find out about it? And then we'll talk about some of the details.
Sure. I mean, even just going back to what you said, I was reelected in 2020. I mean, in 2016, it was based on a vision. The community didn't know me as a prosecutor. But then after 4 years, they had a chance to see what I did. They saw how we attacked the problem of crime, a problem-solving approach, that crime had gone down, that we were using taxpayer dollars efficiently. And so then after they put their hope and faith in me, they actually put their trust in me again once they saw the results. So yes, I was reelected in 2020. And then, as you said, we're getting to August 4th.
So, which is oddly enough, my sister's birthday is also Barack Obama's birthday. So it's a day that sticks in my head because of that. And and I remember seeing the news story. I'm like, what is going on in Florida? And I didn't know you at the time, obviously. And I read about it. And Ron DeSantis has really grown into this autocrat in the making. And I think he prides himself on being like a Trump strongman, which is, I don't care what the laws say. We're going to pass what I want. I'm going to crush my enemies, even if they're Disney or the Tampa Bay Rays. How dare you not do and defy me? So tell us about what happened. How'd you find out about this? And what were you doing on that very day?
Well, I was doing my job, actually. So, and there's a bit of a long story. I'll try to keep it short, but we started a conviction review unit in our office to look at questionable convictions. And we exonerated a man who was wrongfully convicted of a murder from 1983, who had spent 37 years in prison. That happened 2 years ago. And then we got to work after we exonerated that man to go after the people who'd committed the crime. And long story short, we ended up charging 2 men with 2 rapes and murders from 1983. One of them was the case where the guy had been exonerated. Mm-hmm. And then we found out they had done it to another person. So we were charging on that morning. I was supervising the grand jury as we were charging these 2 serial murderers and rapists in a case that had been 39 years past due. I was so excited to be able to get back to the victim's family and report to them, yes, we actually have now finally charged the people responsible for killing your loved one. That's what I was doing that day.
And then comes the news. Did you have any inkling whatsoever? Were there any rumors being kicked about that DeSantis was going to do this?
No, I mean, clearly the governor had been plotting this with his accomplices for days, if not weeks in advance, but I was totally blindsided by it. I was sent an email about a suspension. I stepped out of the grand jury. I looked at it. I walked up to my office, and within about 2 minutes, there was a knock on the door. There was a gentleman from the governor's office with an armed deputy from the sheriff's office. They handed me the order. They didn't give me time to look at it. They didn't give me time to grab my things. They didn't give me time to talk to my staff. I was escorted out of the office immediately. That was it.
I read about that you're the district attorney and you were let out by armed guard and evicted from your office without even having an opportunity to speak to your aides, tell them what's going on, which I imagine must have been stunning for them to see you being, you're not handcuffed, but clearly escorted out in front of staff members.
Absolutely. And, you know, I was standing there saying, well, can we look at the order? And nope, not allowed to look at the order. You have to leave immediately. And look, I've worked with law enforcement throughout my career. I have tremendous respect for what they do. I knew that wasn't the moment to argue with them. When I'm being given an order by law enforcement, I said, okay, I'm leaving. I basically grabbed my bag. I didn't even have time to grab my house keys. I mean, I was just told I need to leave right away. And so I walked out at the deputy's side, and I was kicked out of the building.
And I'm chatting with Andrew Warren, who was the elected state attorney in Florida's 13th district until Ron DeSantis overturned the will of the people. And so what was I read the statement, but tell people what Ron DeSantis claimed is the reason for this.
Well, he's claimed a lot of things, but at its heart, this is about my opposition to two of his favorite cultural war issues, abortion and transgender healthcare. I spoke out on two issues about pending legislation, saying that I didn't think these were good things for our criminal justice system, and I've been retaliated against for it. Now, he talks about I'm not following the law. He talks about neglect of duty, but he can't point to a single example of where I haven't followed the law in any case. And on these two issues, no case has ever come before me. The abortion law in question was found unconstitutional by the first judge who looked at it. The transgender healthcare ban, whatever that is, it doesn't even exist in the state of Florida. So there's no law for me to enforce. I mean, this is Orwellian thought police, where I voiced my opposition to issues, which, by the way, people do all the time as prosecutors, saying this isn't good for our system. And then he says, well, because you don't like these issues, I don't think you're going to follow the law when these laws are passed, if a case comes before you. So now I'm saying that you're not doing your job.
Do you know why he picked you? Because I had read there was another prosecutor in your state saying similar things, but he didn't suspend that person.
I think at the end of the day, this is about the governor wanting to promote his own presidential ambitions, to add a line to his stump speech. And, it's really sad because the implications here go way beyond my office, and we can talk about them. I mean, how much this impacts democracy in the state of Florida. Sure. But why is he doing that? It appears that he's doing this so that he can add a line to his stump speech. We send the governor off in Arizona, New Mexico, and Pennsylvania campaigning with, a guy who was at the January 6th insurrection, and just saying, yeah, I kicked out that woke prosecutor. It was a political circus. It's a political move. It's a violation of Florida law and the U.S. Constitution, and that's why we're challenging it.
And you filed a federal lawsuit to challenge this. Can you explain to people, I guess in a non-legalese way, what the crux of your lawsuit is against Ron DeSantis?
I'll try my best to explain it in non-legalese ways.
I'm a lawyer, but it's still, I don't want to get too dense for people.
No, I understood. So really there are two claims here. One is that the governor violated my First Amendment right to free speech by punishing me for something that I said. And the second claim is that the governor has very limited authority under the state constitution to suspend an elected official. And it's usually for things like where somebody's committed a crime or where they are physically or mentally incapable of doing the job. For example, if someone had a stroke, this is not what's contemplated by the law. So those are the two claims, the free speech violation and that he abused his authority under state law. And again, let me be clear. I mean, there's so much more at stake here than my job. This is about an attack on democracy. If we let this stand, if we allow the governor to just remove elected officials from office and replace them with who he wants to be in office, what's the purpose of having elections? He can literally take the winner of an election, say, I don't like what you said, which makes me think I'm not going to like the job that you're doing, and replace the winner with a person who lost the election. I mean, that's where we're at. in the state of Florida now, it's mind-boggling to think about how much of a full frontal attack on the rule of law and on democracy this is.
Ron DeSantis is a much more dangerous version of Donald Trump. Ron DeSantis is much smarter. He understands the system. He's a lawyer. And this kind of stuff really just harkens to, this is something Trump would have done if he understood he could have done it somewhere, as opposed to, let's say, the January 6th attack or the coup attempt behind the scenes. And it is deeply troubling. And I'm glad you framed it in a bigger way, that Ron DeSantis is going to overturn an election if he doesn't like the results. This is true. What else about Ron? I saw you calling out some of Ron DeSantis' laws that he's passed, again, which are overreaching. Punishing Disney for just speaking out was stunning to me to watch. Republicans used to be pro-corporation. Now you dare defy them, they'll punish even corporations who used to support them. What else should people know about Ron DeSantis in Florida?
Well, I'm not the first person that he's gone after, as you've pointed out. I mean, he's gone after different people in different groups who have spoken out in ways that displeases him. I mean, first it was businesses, Disney and Tampa Bay Rays, for example, the Special Olympics. Then it was teachers, in trying to go after them for their ability to speak openly in class and teach history. And now he's going after an elected official and public servants. I mean, the question Floridians need to be asking themselves is, who's next?
Absolutely. Who's next? And with your lawsuit, how long can you, I mean, I don't know if it's expedited at all, or is it going to take the normal course of time to be heard? What can you tell us about when we might hear something from the courts?
Well, we're hoping that it moves quickly. We filed what's called a motion for a preliminary injunction. And basically what that means is, let's speed up the process because there's so much at stake here. And we're expecting the judge to sign off on a fast briefing schedule, so that the parties basically send in their papers, their written arguments, and then the judge hears oral argument where you come into court and you answer the court's questions in the next month or so. So we're expecting to have a resolution in a month, which is a really good thing. But at the same time, the governor is bankrolling his fight with taxpayer dollars, which is another huge irony of this. He's subverting the will of the people, and then he's using the people's money to pay for it. I'm having to raise my own funds for this. So we started a legal fund at andrewwarrenfl.com. We've gotten a lot of support so far, but as this moves quickly, it means that we need to get that support in quickly to make sure we have the resources to fight back for democracy.
People think because you're a lawyer, you can do it yourself, but no, you don't want to be your own lawyer in this case. And it's andrewwarrenfl.com?
Yes, sir. andrewwarrenfl.com.
How is your family doing through all of this? It must be shocking.
I got to be honest, it's been tough.
Sure.
It's tough on all of us. My wife is my anchor and my compass, and she stood with me through all of this. And I have 2 young children, and they're kind of wrapping their heads around it. But, it's interesting when my elementary school daughter says, I don't understand, but you won the election. We learned about democracy. I'm like, yeah, exactly. I mean, look, when an 8-year-old understands the problems involved, it's just mind-boggling that the governor feels like he can do this and violate the rule of law.
It's also remarkable how a child puts it so clearly and simply. You won the election. Shouldn't you be there? We learned about democracy, that if you have the most votes and you win, you're the person that sits in the office, and that you can't be removed by some political whim of someone else. As you said, why even have elections? How is this playing out in Florida, by the way, in terms of media coverage in your state?
Well, there's been a lot of coverage on it because a lot of people want to understand, how does the governor have the power to overturn an election? I mean, look, some people try to overthrow an election on January 6th. Mm-hmm. Ron DeSantis did it on August 4th. And it has raised a lot of alarms in the state of Florida because people are now worried. What can they say? What are the ramifications if the governor doesn't like how I'm exercising the discretion that is built into my job as an elected official? And I tell you, Dean, this is expanding beyond Florida, or at least it has the potential to.
Sure.
The governor has gone to other states and talked about doing this, and other candidates running for office in their states have been like, yeah, that is a good idea. We should be able to get rid of the elected officials we don't like. I mean, think about what that means for democracy. That's not something you should be hearing in the United States. That is a Venezuelan, North Korean version of democracy, when the supreme leader says we should be getting rid of the elected officials we don't like.
You're absolutely right. The one thing these right wingers do is they copy from each other. If something is working, like the Texas abortion law they did to make a bounty, other states copy it, whatever it is. So you can see Ron DeSantis emboldening others, and the base in other states asking their governor, why are you not suspending the district attorney in this part of, let's say, Texas? Because Greg Abbott will do anything, and that kind of stuff. So it's deeply, deeply concerning. And from your point of view, from in your lawyer's point of view, are they optimistic with your case? I was reading there was this sheriff that he had, Sheriff Israel, who he had suspended, and it didn't work out for him. Obviously, the facts are different, but are you optimistic with your lawyers that you can prevail here?
We are. I mean, you can never guarantee a win in a court of law, but I can guarantee that the law is on our side on this, and democracy is at stake. I mean, we wouldn't have filed the suit unless we knew we had a very strong legal basis. We're pleased to see that we're likely going to get it on an expedited schedule so that, in a month or so we have an answer. But again, this is just, it goes way beyond me. I'm really concerned about the ramifications this has for the future of elections and the integrity of elections in the state of Florida. As I said before, if the governor is allowed to do this, if the courts condone it, if the court of public opinion condones it, then what's the point of having elections?
And it just procedurally, if the court were to grant the injunction, then you can go back to work the next day. Is that possibly a scenario?
It is. It's certainly a possible scenario and maybe a likely scenario. There are a lot of different outcomes that could happen here. And it's really, it's reading tea leaves to speculate what's likely to happen. But again, we know the law is on our side. And the question we're really asking the court is, as long as, even though Ron DeSantis is the governor of Florida, we want to make sure that the First Amendment still applies, the Florida Constitution still applies, and that elections still have meaning.
And your lawsuit's a civil lawsuit. As a prosecutor, are there any potential crimes Ron DeSantis committed by doing this?
Well, I wouldn't want to speculate about that because that would be for some other agency to come in and look at. I will tell you that there are crimes when people intentionally violate somebody's civil rights. And here, if a court finds that my civil rights were violated, then who knows what happens. But yes, it is a crime to intentionally violate someone's civil rights. It is a crime to conspire with other people to break the law. So, who knows how that plays out down the road. But right now, our focus is solely on getting my job back and protecting the integrity of elections and fighting for democracy.
And last thing, if people have been following politics closely in Florida with Ron DeSantis, what is your message to the rest of us about what he not just did to you, but the whole stew, the buffet of his rules, from banning books to punishing transgender teens to the abortion bans to attacks on democracy to his election commission, where he just boasted arresting people but didn't have a press conference when people were arrested in the Villages, which was a pro-Republican bastion. What is your bigger message for us to be aware of in looking at Ron DeSantis' actions?
Well, smart men without any moral compass are extremely scary and dangerous. And at the end of the day, especially at a time when our politics are so divided and our country is so divided over political issues, we need to focus on the things that unite us. And no matter our differences, the one thing that we can always agree on should be democracy, that people's votes matter, that elections matter, that we should follow the results of elections and not just resort to this tribalism where, well, my guy is throwing out the other team's guy, so I'm okay with that. Look, we don't want this happening from either side. We want elections to have meaning, and we want the people to decide who's in office. And I think anytime somebody is violating constitutional rights and is only willing to support the Constitution and the rule of law when it's convenient for their own political agenda, that should scare any red-blooded American who believes in the rule of law in our democracy.
I agree. And Andrew, one last time, what's the website if people want to donate to your legal fund?
It's andrewwarrenfl.com, AndrewWarrenFL.com. And thank you so much. We appreciate all the support that we've had.
Sure. This is an egregious, undemocratic situation we're dealing with, and I have grave concerns about the GOP. He could be their leader in the future. So, Andrew, let's stay in touch and we'll see how this goes. Hopefully have some good news down the road and come back on from your office telling us that you got the injunction. But at the very least, let's keep in touch about this. And I appreciate your time being on the show.
Thanks so much. I look forward to it, Dean. You have a great day.